I'm Bruce Dryburgh. I'm the president of the Hayward School District Board of Education, and I call this meeting to order at 6:07 p.m. August 10th, 2021. Robin, would you take roll for us, please?
Mr. Dryburgh?
Here.
Are we going by Ms. Hayward or
Who are we?
what's Hayward today? Ms. Hayward?
Yes, speak up, please. Ms. Hayward is here.
Mr. Lynch?
Here.
Mr. Moore?
Here.
And Mr. Taylor?
Here. And I've asked Mr. Lynch to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes, please stand. Flags back there, or right there. Whichever way you want to go. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item is the approval of the agenda.
Yeah, I'd like to, Mr. Dryburgh, I'd like to move to approve the agenda with a change of order. And my suggestion is that item E, opening of the school COVID update, coming from Dr. Kym. Item E, to move that to the front of the agenda. It's a little bit unusual, but it might help tonight. Move that to the front of the agenda prior to public comment. So there's some context. I think people are here. I don't think you're here to talk about the striping on the football field, which is a big concern of mine, but so I think that's my suggestion. We'll move that to the front prior to public comment.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dryburgh?
Aye.
Ms. Hayward?
Aye.
Mr. Lynch?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Next item is the approval of the minutes. We only have one from June 8, 2021. Any corrections, additions, anything of that sort? Do I hear a motion?
A motion to accept the minutes from the previous meeting is presented.
Second.
Any comments? Robin?
Mr. Dryburgh?
Aye.
Ms. Hayward?
Aye.
Mr. Lynch?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
And Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
And that brings us up to the information, public content. I'm ready.
Awesome.
I'm moving along today.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
So, thank you, board. Thank you, audience. You guys are the largest audience behind it, so thanks for being here tonight. But I haven't had folks with me in quite some time, and we welcome you for being here. One of the conversations that I had earlier with the team was just a recognition that context-wise, I normally put this up a few days ahead of time, but the reality was, up until even yesterday, the state was still making changes. And so I waited till the last minute to put it all together. So hopefully it will make sense to everyone here. And then once you have public comment, obviously you'll have the context of what we plan on presenting this evening. So to start with, tonight, needs to be here. So, where we're going to go this evening, we'll talk a little bit about community data, talk about what CDE and CDPHE's guidance means, and then we'll talk about where we're going in terms of what recommendations we're making to start the school year. To start with, as of today, San Juan Basin Public Health has identified 1,174 cases in a eliminated in May. However, the dashboard data is still available and we keep watching. Currently, our 1 week incident rate right now is 150 per 100,000. Now, it's worth noting at least that changes a lot because we have a smaller population. We had a really big population, you wouldn't see much change. Our swings a lot. So it's hard to put any real investment in what that number means to us as a community. According to San Juan Basin Public Health, Delta makes up over 80% of the current cases. 56% of Archuleta County is fully vaccinated. And since January 1, Archuleta County has had 44 breakthrough cases. That's cases of people who are fully vaccinated.
Guess it doesn't work.
Currently, the number that San Juan Basin Health shared with us on Monday, which was yesterday, was less than 30% of our children 12 and over are vaccinated at this point. So, some of the context of this, summer's Jumpstart, which is a program, a 2-week program, that if your kids aren't signed up, please consider it. It's going to be where summer school meets summer camp. And lots of fun and outdoor activities, getting kids involved, getting them ready for school. It has no cost involved. We provide transportation and we provide meals as a part of it. It's just an opportunity for us to begin to build kids' skills, build kids' social, build friendships as they start into the school year. School begins on September the 7th. Anyone wanting to be fully vaccinated should have gotten their first dose last week if they wanted to be ready by September 7th. In the spring, when educators became eligible, we had roughly 78% of our educators were vaccinated. The reason why I point that out is because we do have turnover in the summertime. We do have new hires, but that was the last number we had. CHSA is currently planning on allowing school districts to follow what the local health authority guidelines provide. So they're not doing what they did last year where they have their own set guidelines that everybody has to follow across the state. They're going to leave it up to the local areas. So one of the things we looked to do, we wanted to create surveys to get input from our families and from our staff. We wanted to wait to do that until after we saw what the public health authorities were going to give us, whether that was going to be a mandate, whether that was going to be a recommendation, whether they were going to ask us to do something different, whether they were going to just end all public health orders. We weren't really sure how that was going to go. Once we got that information last week, we put together a survey that went out yesterday. Within the first 2 hours, we had 300 responses from parents and 40 from staff. As of today, we have over 600 responses between the two groups. We asked, will you wear a mask at the beginning of the school year? At the conclusion of the 19-20 school year, we recommended masks for those unvaccinated, but we left the choice to families. Do you agree with that decision? Do you support teachers wearing masks? We really tried to keep it short and sweet, but we really wanted to know what is the will of our community, because that's important as a part of the school system. Here's some of the data we collected. For the last month, we left the decision to wear a mask up to individual families. Do you support that decision? Of the families that responded, 81.28% said yes, we like that decision. Of the staff, 82% said yes, we like that decision. We asked the question, are you planning to send your child to school with a mask at the start of the school year? We had roughly 37% said yes, roughly 63% said no. We asked the staff. Roughly 25% of staff said yes, they plan to wear a mask. Roughly 75% said no. And what was interesting in that is the majority of folks said, I'm perfectly comfortable with staff wearing a mask if they want to. It should be their choice.
Yes.
What's interesting here too is that this aligns pretty closely with the percent of folks who didn't choose to get vaccinated and the folks who did. So whether those things line up or not, who knows, but the data does kind of mirror each other. Now, there were about 13 pages of guidance that got given to us by CDPHE, which is the Colorado Department of Public Health, and the Colorado Department of Ed. But the thing that came out of it mostly was, number one, we are recommending, we are not requiring, but our recommendation comes with the caveat that if you don't have high incidence rates, you don't have more than 35 cases per 100,000, and or you don't have more than 70% of your community vaccinated, this is our recommendation. Same conditions that got recommended last year. Many of those were required, not recommended. This year they're being recommended. But I think the overwhelming takeaway, frankly, from Colorado Department of Ed's piece was that at all costs, they wanted kids in school, in person. That was the piece that they said, do what you need to do to keep kids in school. That was a really important takeaway in this, and they changed a lot of what they considered our requirements for exposure and that kind of thing to try to prioritize kids in school. So within that, they put together a page that has best practice recommendations. Anybody who wants to look at that, that's on the Colorado Department of Education's website. Each of these buttons just talks about what they're recommending. None of them are required at this point. That can change, but it's not right now, and I don't have any indication to believe that it will be, but at this point, that's their recommendation. They talk about everything from making sure kids wash their hands, to doing making serial testing available for folks who want it. So our teachers had the opportunity to sign up for free Binax tests last spring if they wanted to do so. They didn't have to, but if they chose to, they could, and it was free. So there's an option for not only students and families to do that, but staff to continually do that if they choose. So the only public health order that has stayed in effect until September 1 requires face coverings in locations like medical facilities, prisons, homeless shelters. It does not apply to schools. So what's the plan? Well, as we shared in our letter to parents on August the 2nd, we really were hoping to begin the school year the way we ended last school year. And what I would say overwhelmingly is based on the data we collected, 600 responses is a lot for this small community. And as a statistician, I have to point out that that is statistically significant. So in looking at that, overwhelmingly, our community does recognize and value allowing our families to choose, which is what we recommended when we started this. We just weren't sure that that was going to be up to us or not. It is up to us because the state has said it's a recommendation, but ultimately we have to make decisions based on our community. With 80% of our families and our staff supporting that decision, we feel like that's the right balance at this time. If the health authorities change from recommend to mandate, my commitment to you all is to come back to this table and make sure that I share that with you, have a conversation, and see where you want to go next. But right now, there's no evidence and there's no data telling us that we should do anything other than the way we ended last school year, which is allowing families to choose. We're not asking anybody to disclose their vaccination status. That's not up to us. And we're recommending that people who are unvaccinated wear a mask, but ultimately, we're not going to police that. We're going to leave that up to individual families because folks need to make a decision that's best for them. So that's my recommendation at this point. Do you have questions?
Or let's go with you guys first. Who's got questions for
Tim?
Dr. Kym, this is a perspective question. If there should be an outbreak by whatever definition an outbreak is, when school starts within the school, is that something that will be brought forward to us or by you for a decision, or will that be mandated by what is currently in the guidelines to CDE or the public health?
Honestly, if it works the way it worked last year, San Juan Basin Health tells us where there are a cluster of confirmed cases and a place where we need to go back and look and see where there might be other people who are exposed to give them that information. As far as telling folks that we have to close something, the local health authority last year were the people that gave us that guidance. I'm assuming they're going to do that again, but I don't have any clear guidance from this that tells me that that is the case. What I do know is they've asked us to keep schools in session, they've asked us to keep kids in person, and for us to make sure that we're putting things like hand washing and all those things in place. And if there is what they determine to be an outbreak, then they will look at it on a class-by-class basis, not a whole school basis.
Okay.
I do know that.
Yeah, important to have our kids in school.
Absolutely.
Obviously. So essentially our presumption would be the status quo of what was in place last
spring.
With the policy that was in place last.
Around quarantining and that kind of thing was
Right.
really looking at, we narrowed that down, and that's a good point that you made. So last year, when we really didn't have a lot of information and we were going by what folks were sharing, close contact started out at 12 feet, right? And then with data, they found 6 feet was effective enough. Now they're saying they're comfortable with 3. In classrooms, they're comfortable with 3, provided all the other context that they've given us. So close contact, when we have to look to notify someone that they've been exposed, it's 3 feet for 20 minutes or more cumulatively.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, Dr. Kym, can you just reiterate or explain in more detail the difference between being on a school bus and transportation and being in a school building or on a school campus?
You know, they're still having in-depth conversations about school buses because initially what we got from CDE and what we got from Colorado Department of Public Health was that school buses are designated as mass transit. And if they're designated as mass transit, we have to treat them the same way you would treat a bus station, an airport, and anything else, that they had to follow the same federal guidelines. If we didn't, we were jeopardizing our funding as an institution. So there have been folks, as you can imagine, that have challenged that. And what I know right now is that there are conversations going on, even as high as AASA is my national organization, and the conversations are ongoing right now as to whether or not that should be treated the same or not. And honestly, I couldn't tell you right now today, I'm not a betting woman anyway, but I couldn't put a bet on the table to say, it's, you know, we're gonna end up on September 7th, that it's gonna stay the mass transit piece, or if it's gonna look more like schools. Right now, the latest guidance we got was you have to treat it like federal transit. I don't know. I think there's a very real possibility that that could change, honestly, based on the conversations that I'm hearing. And San Juan Basin Health actually addressed that on Monday in their sort of guidance that they gave us, saying that they were recommending that we follow all their other guidance, which isn't the same as you have to wear a mask on a bus. So I don't want to step out there on that limb and say something that it's not going to be, because I believe that that decision is still moving, honestly. Bob?
I think I know the answer, but just to clarify, all the high school sports, the chassis sanctioned sports,
Business as usual.
normal as
We can't hear. Sorry, the question was, are all the CHASA sanctioned sports going to happen as regular? That is the plan. Right now, normal seasons at the normal time, in the normal way we would do them, is the plan right now. And they're saying that if there are any restrictions in an area geographically that we go into, we have to follow those wherever we go. And folks, we have to follow ours if they came as a visiting team to us. But CHASA is going to follow whatever is in place for the local area. Any other board questions?
Thank you.
Do you want to take some from our audience now, or do you want to handle that after they make their speech?
Drew Coulson.
I didn't see a lot of hands, so let's do it a little later.
Okay. I'm happy to do it either way. And if you didn't sign up to speak, but you have a question in the folks speaking, I'll happily answer it. Okay?
So, are we ready for public comments, or do we want to do something special for San Juan? In terms of letting them go home early. I think they should listen to it.
I can call names if you're okay with that as we go.
Oh, I'd like to.
But I need to read the policy first, if that's okay.
Can't hear.
I'll stand up just one sec, I promise. I have never been accused of being quiet, I promise. But I am old and I do need my glasses. Just a second. Okay. Board policy, public participation at school board meetings. The Board of Education welcomes audience participation through the use of public comment portion of the regular school board meeting. Audience members are given opportunity to sign up to speak prior to the start of each meeting. The form is available at the meeting. A total time of 30 minutes is allotted for public participation with a maximum of 3 minutes per individual speaker. The board president will invite those who have signed up to stand and address the board on any subject on the agenda. Organized groups speaking on the same topic are restricted to a total of 10 minutes and are asked to cover only points not made previously. Copies for distribution are requested to be submitted prior to the meeting to the administration office. Prior to addressing the Board of Education, board members request that a solution be sought by following simple step process if at all possible. Questions and concerns involving any school program or personnel should be addressed through teachers, principals, or superintendent. If a question cannot be resolved by following the procedure, any individual staff member may request to appear before the Board of Education. Members of the public wishing to make formal presentations before the board should make a request to be added to an agenda by calling, emailing, or visiting the administration office 2 weeks prior to the regularly scheduled meeting. After the audience section of the agenda, discussion topics may be restricted to board members only. All Board of Education meetings are open to the public, but your questions or concerns will not be resolved during the audience section. More information or study may be needed before the board can respond to your comments in writing. The board will listen with respect and ask those who address the board to please do the same.
Who's the official person?
Mr. Wayne Bryant is the first speaker.
Okay.
And as you heard, please speak loud. There you go.
Give me, it's hot and it's so, good evening, my name is Wayne Bryant, and I live at 235 Levy Court. When I was in the 3rd grade back in 1963, I was held back for an extra year because I didn't obtain the level of achievement required to move into the 4th grade. Back then, we taught reading, writing, math, science, music, arts, history. As a junior, we continued advanced in physics, grammar, American history. We memorized the preamble of the Constitution. In high school, we taught many skills: homemaking, cooking, woodshop, automotive, typing, welding, and financial skills, balancing checkbooks, skills that prepared us for life. We would all stand up and pledge allegiance, one nation under God, so thank you for doing that still. Parents would sit in classrooms and volunteer. School boards would listen and go by the parents' directions, so thank you very much for listening to us. Thank you all for coming out tonight. This is a great turnout. Our children's future are at stake now more than ever. Yet, so here we are, more focused on face masks, social distancing, and vaccinations rather than education. Our children have and are being dumbed down. They can't add, subtract, or write anymore. This is a disgrace. So let me ask a few questions, and yes, I want them all answered and given time. How much government funding grants do you receive for each student to advance, even though they haven't qualified at that particular grade level? Do we just herd our children to school so we don't lose government funding, no matter if they're fully educated or not? Why are our children's education being sacrificed in exchange for government revenue strains? Question 4, aren't there also many strings, guidelines attached in these orders to receive these funds, or do we have to accept them? We have become dependent, like an addiction, on money. You will do whatever it takes to continue this revenue stream, even at the expense of our children's education. Even now, by putting our children's health at risk. Wow, shame on everybody for doing that over this last year. Let me get this straight. Funding has become paramount, while education has taken a back seat. Yet here we are talking about face masks and questionable vaccinations. So I, a taxpayer, along with everyone else in the room, demand to know, how much money do you receive for carrying out these unlawful regulations? Are you certified as medical practitioners? Are you not violating the law by issuing medical advice? Also, do you not receive that each and every one of you are held personally and financially liable for any and all medical expenses that are occurred arising out of our children's health from your decisions over the past year, as well as today and in the future? Not to mention the psychological damage you are inflicting upon them and us as parents and grandparents. Here's a good example. Do you not remember denying our kids a chance to go to the state football championship over their mask? Wow. That experience of a lifetime, you took that away from them, especially our kids. This is not acceptable. Let me remind you, your job is to educate our children, period. Now let's get back to it, instead of playing these stupid games.
Thanks.
Would you guys be okay if I just faced it a little more this way?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I'm not trying to knock you.
No, you're fine.
Okay, my name's Jimmy Jones. I'm not mad at you guys, so if I get a little angry, it's like, I keep hearing a lot about mandates, orders, suggestions, and whatever else, but I feel compelled to remind you all of a few things. We are a nation of laws, okay? State and federal law requires that quarantines require a court order. Nobody can just quarantine people without a court order. Segregation was abolished in this country decades ago, and it's still illegal as far as I know. The constitutional authority to make law that applies to all the people only rests with the legislative branch of the Colorado State government. It does not rest with San Juan Health Basin. It doesn't rest with the Colorado Department of Health or any other non-legislative agency issuing mandates and orders, okay? Any order, mandate, recommendation, or any other thing issued outside of the legislative branch of Colorado state government cannot be forced on the people legally or lawfully, okay? And I just want to remind you all swore an oath to uphold the state and federal constitutions, okay? From this moment forward, you can't claim ignorance of the law anymore. I have sent this school board a public records request. I'm not going to go through what I requested, but if you proceed with forcing mandates, orders, recommendations on our children in violation of state and federal law, it will evidence willful and knowledgeable criminal intent, and I intend to hold you accountable for that. So all I'm asking you guys is to honor your oath, uphold the state and federal constitutions, and if we are in a serious situation here, let's get our legislative branch involved to issue law to address it. I don't think you guys need to be making yourselves criminally and civilly liable because somebody in another county tells you to do so. Thank you, guys.
Bethany Jones?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Bethany Jones. I am a resident of Archuleta County. I am an entrepreneur. I am a business owner. I am a certified self-talk trainer on brain science and the power of neuroplasticity. And I'm also a wife and a mom. So up until now, I've been a homeschool and a private school parent. However, this is the first year that we have enrolled one of our children in public school. So you might imagine I'm a little anxious coming here tonight with the best of intentions, the greatest of hopes. This past year, our family has connected with so many wonderful community members here. But tonight, I'm here to voice my concerns for the upcoming school year. I believe the job of the school is to educate, right? To provide opportunities around that. I believe the job of the family unit is to make private decisions regarding their medical choices, right? I believe in the United States of America and the freedoms that our forefathers fought for. I believe that we, the people of the United States, are here to be a shining light, honoring and upholding our freedoms, unlike so many places around the world. I believe segregation was demolished years ago and absolutely must remain that way. I believe that the parents of Archuleta County are smart and able to make great individual health decisions for their families. I believe the school board, teachers, and administration should not be left with the responsibility and liability to regulate, mandate, enforce, or suggest medical procedures for the private family unit. I believe the school board and administration are also smart and able, and you guys are able to protect the rights of the parents and the students per the United States and the Colorado Constitution, as your oath outlines in the Colorado Senate Bill 17-296, Section 6 and 7. which is required to be taken by all Colorado school staff. The fact that the state of Colorado finds it necessary and important for the staff to take this oath is awesome. It's powerful, right? And we are here to stand with you in that. I'm not here to argue the origin of the virus, whether it's real or not, whether masks work or not, whether the vaccine is safe or not. I'm here to remind us all of our constitutional right to freedom. Freedom to wear a mask. Freedom to not wear a mask. Freedom to get the shot. Freedom to not get the shot. Freedom to be tested. Freedom to not be tested. We do not segregate. We stand for the Constitution. We uphold the law. We expect you to honor your oath. We are asking you to trust the parents, and we value liberty. We are here to stand with you as you follow the laws issued by the legislative branch of our federal government, regardless of what San Juan Health Basin or the CDC recommends. As Rosa Parks said, you must never be fearful about what you are doing when it is right. I'll be the first to admit I was nervous to come here tonight and to speak to all of you, but if I don't speak, who will, right? To my fellow parents and people of Pagosa, nobody is coming to save us. We are the people we are waiting for to stand. To the school board members, if each of you don't vote for freedom for our kids, then who will? You may have never planned for it to be this way, but here we are. Those who have the courage to stand are remembered in history. What a wonderful opportunity you all have to be a living example of this to our next generation. We are here to stand with you as you honor and protect our freedoms. And as I close, I want to close with a quote from our former President, Ronald Reagan. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. Thank you.
Happy Justice.
I'm Kathy Justice. Lived here since 1978. I'm a scientific researcher. About a year ago, I started researching COVID and masks. I found that there are no studies, 0 studies, that show safety or efficacy for anyone, let alone everyone, of masks. All variables must be considered for each individual. Mask mandates are, number 1, medical prescribing with an unlicensed emergency use authorization experimental product for a medical purpose. Done without signed medical consent from each person you mandate, and without notifying each individual of the potential risk of the extent that such risk could manifest both long and short term. Number 3, done without knowing each individual's inherent medical susceptibilities and mental and other health situations. 4, this is promulgated by you, non-medical licensed medical professionals. None of you, I don't believe, have a medical license. That's illegal and subject to litigation. Since my time is limited, I have prepared a short listing of a mass of science, peer-reviewed science that I found that I'm going to leave with you. Mandates being illegal is backed up by the Nuremberg trials and the Nuremberg Code, which is accepted internationally. Beyond the science, my research has revealed that mandates of masking are illegal and violating federal law Title 21 of the Food and Drug and Cosmetic Act. A little piece of information that I found out previous about litigation on situations like this. After 9/11, the government and a drug company tried to mandate military troops anthrax and other drugs that were unapproved. Many refused. They were thrown in the brig. When it went to federal court, the final ruling is that no one, not even the federal government, can mandate anyone to be forced to use unapproved drugs, etc. That court case was Doe versus Rumsfeld. It set a huge precedent in the situation here. Remember that any suggestions from a higher authority is ill-advised and could very well lead to you being involved involved in legal action. Endorsements are not science. Have any of them given you any science to prove what they're saying? I doubt it. The higher authority know they are throwing you under the bus. You'll be the first ones of enacting it, therefore you'll be the first ones in the case of the law. We do have a choice. Everyone has a choice by law. I deal in facts. This is not hearsay.
Fellow board members, we have already gone over the 10 minutes that we normally have for one side of an issue. I would recommend we see first if there's anybody who wants to speak in favor of masks, the other side. Are you saying you would like to?
No, I'm saying this is public comment. There should be a limit on public comment. We're not a group, so those rules should not.
We're not drawing lines here.
Yeah. Everybody should be able to speak at a meeting. It's open to the public.
Just following the rules that we have followed it since I've been here for 12 years. I'd like to see
From the student perspective, I'd be happy to speak.
What's that, sir?
I'd be happy to speak from a student perspective.
I'd like to hear that. Would you guys like to hear that?
Yeah, and I'd like to suggest that I'm willing to listen attentively to public comment for the full 30 minutes that's allotted for public comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't disagree with that at all. I would like to get, we may even have other topics people want us to talk about. That's what I'm trying to cover here.
You signed up? Won't you come right over here for just a second? Let me make sure that I record your name.
Yeah, I'm perfectly willing to take all 30 minutes. I just don't want the person who wants to talk about the football team not to get it.
I'm in favor of 30 minutes.
Okay.
I want you all to ask yourselves, do we want to keep our freedom that our original patriots fought for? Hello, I'm James Jolly. I am freshman class president at Pagosa Springs High School. I think it is important for me to stand up here today on behalf of my council, my fellow classmates, and my community at large. I did promise my freshman class that I'd represent them, and that's what I'm here to do. I'm standing in my family legacy, proactively maintaining community stewardship as the grandson of Ross Aragon. So I'm here today to bring to your attention the biggest problem, not just in our district, but in the world, the so-called COVID-19 guidelines. I am bringing a reasoned possibility respecting all choices, and I ask you to respect and hear me out. I'm fed up with the experience of being cut off from my common law right for my individual health. I simply know that it is not okay to force anything upon me or others. If you show up to school and decide not to comply with these rules, what happens? In my last year's experience, you get punished or left out. If the non-vaccinated have to wear masks and others get to breathe free, that is what I understand as discrimination. This simply isn't okay. In the school, on the bus, or anywhere else. I thank you all for giving me the opportunity to voice what is important.
Ellen Schmidt.
My name is Ellen Schmidt, and I've lived here for 25 years. Less than 1% of teachers and students have been infected in schools that have reopened. Children are at extremely low risk of becoming seriously ill or dying as a result of COVID. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics and the Children's Hospital Association, approximately 1.6% of children with a known case of COVID-19 have been hospitalized, and 0.01% have died. The science is unequivocal that open schools pose no undue risk to children, adults, or the community at large. It has been known for many months that children have almost no risk of death from COVID-19, and they are not a common common vector for transmitting the SARS-CoV-2 virus. We are angry. We are at our wits' end with the government's overreach. I could tell you that I have presented you with numerous documents and data, testimonies, and studies from professionals. I could tell you that the school does not have authority over our children. I could tell you that it is the school's job to provide children an education, not to force unapproved methods of healthcare on them, all of which are true. Some may say it comes across as counterproductive or insensitive, but our children are with it. The bottom line is that our children are suffering. Masks can cause fear, anxiety, panic attacks, and stress. Stress alone exacerbates all kinds of illnesses. A disturbed respiratory physiology in children can have long-term disease-relevant consequences. Slightly elevated CO2 levels are known to increase heart rate, blood pressure, headache, fatigue, concentration disorders. According to experts, masks block the foundation of human communication and the exchange of emotions, and not only hinder learning but deprive children of the positive effects of smiling and laughing. Vaccines are harmful too. If teachers are afraid of getting sick, wear a mask. Get vaccinated, stay 3 feet away. Stop making it a child's responsibility to protect you. It's just not worth it to find out, hindsight is 2020, that our children end up with adverse effects for life, that we lose one of these precious treasures, or that we may never hold a child or grandchild because your family member is sterile. The enemy would want to separate, divide, and let us perish for lack of human contact. But we are God's creation, and He would want us to know that we are made for relationship to care, love, hug, and thrive on human contact. Many verses in the Bible say, greet one another with a holy kiss, which comes from the word phileo. Love and affection shown a family member or friend. Hugging in itself is powerful. It's a powerful way of healing. Among other things, hugs strengthen the immune system, boost oxytocin levels, which heal feelings of loneliness, isolation, and anger, build trust and a sense of safety, lift serotonin levels, elevating mood and creating happiness. You need 4 a day for survival, 8 a day for maintenance, and 12 a day for growth. How have we gotten so far away from this?
We can do one more of these before I get this done.
Mr. Roger Sanchez.
You guys are a tough act to follow. You guys are awesome. First off, qualifications and disclaimer for what I'm about to say. I was a personal trainer for about 8 years of my life, and with that, I dealt a lot with nutrition as well for a lot of my clients. Another thing I have to bring up, and this is just off topic, but I noticed this when I was sitting down. When Bethany Jones brought up the school oath, somebody under their breath, along with your board here, uttered no under their breath, and that to me is very concerning. So, just wanted to let that out. What we have right now is we have a society that are acting like moths to a flame. The governor doesn't promote health. He promotes donuts. He promotes inactivity. He promotes a sedentary lifestyle. San Juan Basic Public Health, their blog has not even covered the topic of actual health and physical fitness and nutrition in years. And when it has, it was very brief. And it was very embarrassing, to say the least. With us being moths to a flame, we have delayed medical surgery procedures, we have delayed treatments, increased youth suicides, increased youth despair, increased alcoholism, domestic violence, businesses permanently closed, purposely fabricated division, increased anxiety and depression, increased homelessness, increased national debt and inflation, increased drug use, decreased global productivity, increased job losses, decreased physical and mental fitness and health, and the biggest wealth transfer in history. And people wonder why we're upset. Children are being manipulated to wear masks by their authority figures. This increases stress in the child, where it shouldn't be stress. The only stress they should have is education and growing up, getting their bodies acclimated to becoming an adult. With increased and continuous increased cortisol and anxiety, kids will be stressing so much, their sleep could be affected and their development could deteriorate. Children need exposure to germs and the like. They do not need to be isolated, continuously sanitizing their hands, destroying their microbiome in the process. And they need to see the faces of everyone, or it affects their psyche in the long term, further weakening their immune system. It's one step closer to allowing the profiteers to own them. To own them. And who knows if they're already being owned with the vaccines that are already patented and whatnot. We've had medical professionals tell us that inhaling tobacco fumes was a treatment for asthma. We've had them telling us that 7-Up mixed with milk was allowing infants to grow big and strong. Having candy or soda before your main meal will help curb appetites, among other things that medical professionals, supposedly industry medical professionals, have suggested, and we're falling for it again. We as a whole have decimated the current situation with our choices. We are now ruining it for their futures. Weak societies aren't successful long term. We are leaning towards a coddled society that, when given the chance, world powers, governments, etc., would abandon us in a heartbeat. We are nothing to them. We are their bosses. I was a personal trainer a couple decades ago. I loved helping people change their lives. And I noticed that there's a lot of people in this room who don't take care of theirs. I'm just making an observation. And so those same people do not need to be telling kids how to live their lives and to stay healthy. Implementing masks will negatively affect the mental, physical, emotional, developmental health of our youth in detrimental ways. If we keep this up, we will have failed them and raise a class of people who could be a useless class in the future and one that's easily taken over. Let's not let Mao, Stalin, Mussolini, Hitler, and the like be happy by making the wrong choice. Allow the natural development of our youth to supersede your fear. Fear gets us nowhere. Other countries can conquer fear, and we're going to be a weak one very soon if we continue this. One last note, freedom is lost gradually from an uninterested, uninformed, and uninvolved people. To quote from Thomas Jefferson, and it serves well today. Thank you.
We are going to take the entire 30 minutes to have a public comment. I do want to hear from anybody who wants to speak in favor of... You're up, I think. No? Anybody who wants to take the other side of the argument in terms of masks or anything else, or any other completely different subject, I'll take you, and we still have time. We'll get back to some more of these. Bill, make it short, please.
Bill Hudson, 1,000.
What?
1,000.
Oh.
Of all things.
Of all things.
Of all things.
Safe at home.
So I am I'm serving with the Pagosa Housing Partners. We've just finished doing a survey of the community to find out where our housing problems are the most severe. And wanted to let you know that we will distribute our results from our survey to you probably next month after we get some real analysis and peg some of the numbers so that we know what they mean. And also wanted to invite you, I didn't get an invitation for this particular event, but there is an address on the back of the card for our website. We have invited Jennifer Commode, who has about 14 years of work in the housing industry. She was director of Summit County Housing Authority, and she is now director of the Medicine Valley Regional Housing Authority. She's going to be here on August 30th. If you have any particular concerns about housing policy, about ways to finance, she will address any questions that you have about housing. You can just find my address on this website and send me a little note. I would like to hear more about this, or I'd like to hear more about that. And she will happily address whatever your concerns are from her level of expertise. So we just love to hear from you if you have concerns, and also would like to invite you all to her presentation on the 30th of August. Thank you so much.
I'm going to take it that there's no one who wants to speak in favor of masks. I've asked that about 3 times, so we're going to go back to anybody who wants to speak against masks.
We're at Mr. Bruce Jones. I had a question I'd like to ask. This is a very unusual event from what I understand, that you having this large amount of people here. And I would like to ask if you'd reconsider and let people speak, even if it goes over the 30 minutes, since this is such an unusual and important topic.
It depends whether people are saying the same thing that has already been said, in which case I don't think that's productive. If it is something completely different, I would certainly consider it along with the other board members.
Your petition might care about that, but I'd like to give my spot to this young lady right here. If I
Oh,
could.
good for you.
Good evening. My name is Marie Cuffier. I've lived in Pagosa for 17 years. And I come here not only because I am a mother of 4 and a grandmother of 6, but because I am a medical doctor. And for the last 18 months, I've been consumed with study, research, and treatment of COVID patients. I'm happy to say that all of my patients, 3 of which right now are acute, have all done very well on simple, available, inexpensive medications. We've had no hospitalizations. Now, we have a problem, and the problem is misinformation. And I'm not going to stand here and talk ad nauseum about COVID. I could. I want to focus on the situation at hand, and that's basically the masks. But I think that we need to stop the obsessive, simplistic, misleading counting of positive test results. Because positive test results, first of all, could be false positives, but even if they're real positives, I can't tell you how many patients I've seen and families I've seen where the children have kind of been sick or listless for a day. Kids don't really get sick with this. And then maybe a parent comes down with this. The Delta variant that we're seeing now is nothing more than a mutation of the virus, which is less of a problem, much less in terms of intensity, but it happens to be easy to catch. So there's so much fear and so much panic, and there need not to be. This is not as difficult a problem as SARS influenza was in 2017. In 2017, we had babies, infants, teenagers, young adults dying in just the same numbers as midlife and senior citizens. That is not the case here. So I think organizations waste time and credibility when they enforce measures that have little, if any, impact, and maybe worse, do harm. When I took my vow of medicine, I promised, first do no harm. And I have lived by that. It has served me and my patients well. I've also made a commitment to tell the truth and seek out the truth. And so I think what we need to do is ask ourselves the question, what works, and do that? And what doesn't work, and not do that? Just that simple thing. We need to not necessarily go by guidelines that are put up by organizations that are following another organization, that are basing things on less than science. All I can say is thank God for the practicing doctor community who came to the fore a year ago February and started treating this malady, treating it and seeing that patients responded instead instead of the panic that the politicians and the policymakers wanted to impose. So what I'm saying is, let's first do no harm. And let me give you a really quick example of the harm that's done by masks. For 25 years, worked at UCLA. I was on the full-time faculty, and at the end of my career, I was a full professor of medicine, intensive care, and pain. So I had a broad career, and I was very grateful for it. But the biggest thing that my career entailed was monitoring, measuring, monitoring. So we worked on facts, not on assumptions. And in a particular case that I was present for in the last year, a gentleman came in for a pre-op visit evaluation before he was going to have a procedure. He was 60 years old, very healthy, slim, and had all the parameters one would expect in a healthy gentleman. A mask was put on his face, and within 6 minutes, his oxygen saturation dropped from 96 to 85. This was a healthy man. His heart rate started to increase because his oxygen level was going down. And when I observed this, I immediately pulled the mask away. And within 5 minutes, that oxygenation had climbed up. Now, when I speak to people who work in establishments who have been wearing masks, and now they don't have to wear them, I ask them, is there a difference? And overwhelmingly, they tell me the same thing. By the end of the day, I was tired, I was exhausted, I wanted to go home, lie down, take a nap, had no energy. As soon as we no longer wore the masks, I thought I was on some new vitamin type. That's what oxygenation does. When you are breathing CO2 in warm air, you are not doing good, you are doing harm. And all I can say is, first do no harm.
Bethany Cole.
Hello, I'm Bethany Cole. I want to thank the board for giving us the full 30 minutes, and thanks Ms. Hayward for saying that. It was much appreciated. I only have one question actually for the board because they have great information. And kind of addressed to Dr. Kym. You were part of a COVID-19 policy implication stakeholder group that provided recommendations regarding the modifications for schools from July 2020 to December of 2020. So we made recommendations to the Colorado Department of Health. My only question is, being on that stakeholder group for that Colorado Department of Health, is that in any way, shape, or form making your decisions, like impacting your decisions for this upcoming school year?
So can I clarify? The recommendation in the group that I was on was addressing assessments.
Yes.
And whether or not we should take assessments depending on how much time kids were in school. It didn't have anything to do with health recommendations because I'm not a medical doctor and I'm not qualified to do that.
Just want to know, it's an unprecedented thing, and just want to make sure that no health decisions were made on that.
Okay, it had to do with assessments. Dale Schmidt.
I give my time to the next person that wants to speak.
Okay. Denny Blaish?
Yes.
Did I say it right?
Yeah, you did, thank you.
You're welcome.
My name is Denny Blaish, and I want to thank you all for being here and for allowing us the time to share our thoughts. This is over 70 people here. I have several comments. First thing, if I were in school and I had to see my teacher wearing a mask, I don't think I would make it because I need to see people's faces. I also can't breathe with one on, and I find it horrifying that we're putting children into masks. There's several things that I would like to make you all aware of. The San Juan Basin Health Department, we did not elect them. They are appointed. We can't do anything to remedy if we don't like what they're saying or how they are performing their job. We have absolutely no say in that. To me, that's important. The idea that we are talking about even vaccinating young children when this was a disease that was possibly killing people in their 80s and some older. I want you to think about why we are doing that. Why are we trying to give vaccines to 6-month-old babies in this? Who is profiting from this? This is not normal. This is an emergency use vaccine that they say that it's a vaccine that we are using. I would challenge you to look at what the EUA says. The last line of it says that if there is any other treatment, that the vaccine cannot go forward. As our doctor said, there are other treatments. This did not need to be something that everybody lives in fear of. And there is other ideas out there. Now, has anybody here listened to any alternative news other than, CBS, Fox News, and all those? Anybody here listen to anything else? Okay. There is other news out there that you are not hearing. There is news out there that has different stories. The idea that you were just talking about, that unvaccinated should be wearing a mask, Dr. Anthony Fauci said last week that because of the breakthrough cases, that the people who should be wearing masks are the vaccinated people. Why aren't you guys talking about that? So you're not hearing all the news. If you would like to hear the other side of the story, which is very different than what you're going on, I suggest you give me a call, we can sit down and we can discuss it. And that way maybe we can come to a good resolution on how we teach our children so that we can raise wonderful children and not ones that are scared. Thank you.
We have 4 people left. We have gone through 30. Would the board members like to keep listening, or should we cut it off for the policy at 30?
I'd like to keep listening.
12 minutes.
Okay.
Joshua Thomas? Did I say that right?
Yes. It's the community. Bold, which is awesome. Everybody's come out here. I have nothing prepared other than to listen and to voice freedom of choice. Freedom of choice that actually on the descendant of John Adams, that he was hammered pretty heavy from the politicians, from the other politicians, from the media. But there was a lot of disinformation and there's a lot of misinformation. Okay, but a lot of misinformation and disinformation that's out there. And so it causes division. And before you have any war, you have to divide people, either by race, color, religion. This town has, I don't know how many different churches are we not divided? Is there only one church according to God? Are we not divided? But yet we don't kill each other. So we get along as a community, in love, typically. That's why we're here, because we love our community, we love our children. We want to back you guys up, to stand up to any mandates that come out. And it's difficult because not everybody's been given a measure of faith, and not everybody arrives at the same understanding at the same time. That's why there's the fruits of the Spirit, or byproduct of your relationship with God, is we have patience. We have grace, we have gentleness, but those are the things that this community, that's why we're here. We have those qualities. The longer you're here in Pagosa, the more peace you're at. Anybody here who's been here a long time, you just got here, beautiful state of Mijares. Actually, everybody's got a beautiful thing to say. It's difficult to be on your guys' side, but you're not alone. We can, we'll back you guys up if you back us up because we're in the community. And that's what we're here for, is we try to back up our kids and back you guys up. So with that, the freedom of choice, let's not take it away. Give the kids, not forced vaccinations, not mandates, but the freedom of choice. I was a little concerned with actually what you said was your job right now is to try to, what they told you was to try to get the kids in school. That's what you stated earlier in the beginning. You said that was the thing, they just wanted you to get kids in school. I'm a little concerned about it is kind of like a bait and switch. Get them in school and then what? What's going to happen after we get them in? It'll be a little harder to get everybody together, and let's just subcontract teachers and they can teach our children, and then you guys just get the funding, as a community, we can come up with funding, and we'll hire the teachers to teach our children. Because that's actually what our taxes go to, is to hire you guys, to hire the teachers, to help teach our children. That's it.
Hi, I'm Scott Vanderwall. I'm licensed as a chiropractor for over 30 years and been in practice and general practice, seen a lot of families, a lot of kids, a lot of moms, helped with a lot of illnesses, a lot of viruses, a lot more serious things. I understand that the body heals itself and I understand how it works. It's actually a mystery, but kids are meant to get sick, okay? It's super important for the strength of their immune system, and only strengthened by exchange of viruses and getting ill makes kids stronger, and they impart immunity to the whole community with the herd immunity thing. So that's actually how it works. I'm dumbfounded that we actually are keeping track of some testing that's supposed to show a kid has a cold or a healthy person has a cold. I mean, when is this significant? Why is this important? Why is this driving the conversation of the danger of this COVID thing? There's no danger to children of morbidity or mortality. This is crazy. It hurts my heart to see these kids covered with face masks and all this social distancing craziness, and see my patients have their kids at home and driving them to distraction and not able to get a quality education and being on the computer forever and ever and just sitting in the corner. I mean, this is a sad excuse for education, people. The brain needs three things. It needs oxygen, number one, so mask is not working. It needs good nutrition, which hopefully the parents are doing that stuff, and it needs stimulation, okay? So with the mask on, how much is a kid going to get stimulated? How much are they going to learn about human interaction? How are they going to develop social skills without a social environment? This is absolutely insane for no medical reason, and I think we should just stop prescribing medical remedies to people who are completely healthy and just let them decide on their own based on hopefully some real information. So these bodies that regulate us and keep coming up with new rules, oh it's 3 feet, oh it's 6 feet, oh it's 20 feet, I mean, come on, there's no consistency. They're just making this stuff up. There's really no danger to this virus. Hand washing has always been a good idea. It's always been a good idea to stay home when you're sick. I'm all for that, okay? So let's be responsible citizens and forget all this second guessing craziness and this crazy fear. Thank you.
Sorry? Pretty short this week, I think. I'd like to get an email if it's okay. I have a video I was going to try to transcribe, but I couldn't do it. 6 short-minute thing that just describes and talks about to a school board about masking. Sorry about that. I need to talk loud because my husband hates it when I talk loud, so now I'm going to talk loud. Anyway, if I could have an email, then you guys could just look at it. It just describes from a doctor that's in this field of masking and all this stuff and what he has to say. It's informative. And the only other thing I have to say is that in Florida, I think, I don't remember exactly, they tested 7 to 10 masks from children who wore the mask one day. They sent them into a lab, and when it came back, It was full of bacteria, fungus, disease, and we all know parents are probably sending their kids in that mask the next day, full of crap. So, I mean, when you realize that your children are wearing sick masks and really not getting what they need to think and breathe, that's a problem. You know, and don't forget, masking is like grooming, sexual grooming. I have a problem with that too, because there's a lot of sex abuse going on now and trafficking and all this crap going on with all this masking, kids staying home and being abused. So it's not a good thing. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Last speaker, Terry Brown.
Terry Brown.
My last?
Yes, sir.
Crap. No, because you covered everything, but my name's Terry Brown, I live here in Hayward, and I'm a parent, I'm an employer, and I've seen what kind of education we're delivering to our children when they can't even make change. And our solutions seem to be social and economic as opposed to the real problem, and that is curriculum. You know, I didn't write the damn thing down, but if I did, I could read it and I could write it. And I see kids that can't do some of the basic skill sets, and I don't think anybody here is against you folks in any way, shape, or form. You're giving your time and you care about your community too, and we do too. But our children are a year behind now, and that is questionable whether we'll ever be able to make that up again. These pandemics have come and gone, and they are a fact of life. And if you want to get into stats, since 2010, the same amount of people have died in the world year after year. So this is a made-up, make-believe thing. Yes, it is real, but the variants are flu, cancer, those are the variants, and they've all disappeared. So folks, your children's lives are at stake here. They don't have to wear a mask. A mandate is not a law, as you suggested. Laws are laws. These are suggestions. They're yield signs. All of these people take their kids home and they raised them and they're all still alive and they took good care of them. I suspect, as good Americans, they know what the hell to do.
Yeah, thank you.
Since we were doing a time limit, and I think Dale, Schmidt, and Bruce Jones gave up their spots, can we give them each 3 minutes and then
If you guys would like to, that'd be fine.
I mean, they can decline if they'd like.
Yeah.
Is that?
That's fine by me.
Mr. Jones, Bruce Jones,
Guys,
you yielded your time. Would you like to speak?
I appreciate you guys as a board, genuinely appreciate what you do. I have nothing more to add that would be repetitive, so I appreciate you guys.
Thank you. And then there was someone else.
Dale Schmidt.
Dale
Yeah, I would
Schmidt
like
gave
to say
his time.
a real short thing. After listening to everybody, my concern is, so you guys will take all of our input. And, you know, I've heard it's all the same, so you're gonna take our input and you're gonna listen, you're gonna have another meeting, is that how it goes down? And then, is there a date in the near future where you make what you had on that list, you'll keep it all, or because you listen to us, you will change some things, or does the health, what's the organization?
San Juan.
Yeah, San Juan. Are they going to, whatever they say, that's what you're gonna do, and it doesn't matter what we say? I just wanna know, is there any value in all of us coming here and doing and saying pretty much the same thing? I get that. So that's my question to you. Is that something you can answer?
Good question.
or gotta read on email?
If we follow board policy, the board follows up in writing, specifically to answer your question. Because we have to capture it in public record, and it's not something that's answered in the moment, it's answered in a follow-up email. You're welcome to share it though. That's typically the way that the policy works, unless you want to.
We'll see what happens.
Okay.
like Dr. Kym to repeat what she said at the very beginning. We have some people that have come in here that weren't here in the beginning. But if somebody came in later, it'd be easy to think, you know, that entire board wants to keep the kids in masks for the rest of their life. And what she said in the beginning is board policy until it changes, that we're not going to do that. We're going to go with what we did before until there is factual change or something that we have to take a look at. I'm stealing all your thunder here. And in which case we'll have you all back and we'll talk about it some more before we make those changes, if that's at all possible. Now, if it's something that happens at 2 in the morning and you gotta fix it by 3, we'll probably take action earlier. But I know from talking to the other board members, I know what my position is. And I don't get any joy watching kids with masks on. If somebody is on the other side of that argument, that's fine with me. But don't think for a minute that your job here was to get me to change my mind. My job here was to listen to you people, and I did. Anybody else want to say anything from the board? Bob? Dana? Anybody?
Well, I'll briefly comment that I think if you put together what the input was and what Dr. Kym's suggested guidelines are, that the idea of choice and judgment from the parents is what the marching orders are.
Sort of this discrimination part, or if you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask, or it sounds a little...
No one's mandated to do anything that they don't think is right or their parents don't think is right for them. So that's as fair as I think you can be, given here. There are many people out there who would say they really are more concerned. They want their child to wear a mask, and they will. And if you feel differently, your child won't, and that's consistent with the guidelines.
I was a little concerned about the school bus issue, that it was based on funding and not on public health. And I was a little bit concerned that that's still out to be discussed. I mean, what's the difference between, it's an airborne, what's the difference between wearing it in the school bus or wearing it in the classroom? There is no difference. It's based on funding. And that's wrong. If nothing else should be based on funding your parents. I'm sorry, that has nothing to do with child development, child education.
Yeah. I heard it too.
Didn't you say you guys really look at that again? That issue has not been resolved yet. It'd be hard pressed to give you a good argument as to why the federal government thinks it's appropriate for buses, but at the moment they do, okay? It doesn't make any sense to me either, okay? Hopefully they'll change it soon.
It's not a law.
What?
Wearing a mask in public transportation is not a law.
I didn't say it was.
It's a guideline, and you don't have to follow it.
It's part of the mess.
Okay.
We're against.
To you.
The other thing nobody said, which always makes me feel better if you do, the Constitution of the state of Colorado says that the school board is in charge of the schools, not the politicians. So put that in your speech someday, because that's what we try and do here with some difficulties with people in other cities. Thank you so much for coming. Really do appreciate it.
And you're welcome to stay.
And I have another question. Because some people and children might be wearing a mask and maybe some teachers, is it possible to let those that are more comfortable be in different classroom settings so that there's no bullying and, I know it's discriminating in any way.
I would say no. 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 That's personal preference. Yeah.
All right. Give us a 2-minute break or what?
If you go on to the presentation from the Pagosa perspective, he's here to present, he's been here meetings.
We have a question in the field.
If my child were to try and get on one of these buses without a mask, would they be denied getting on the bus?
No,
That's
no.
not the federal government.
I would like
10th
to
Amendment,
suggest,
please.
Anytime they make a mandate, they make an out. And the outs are religious freedom and physical or mental reasons. So they can come in for any reason, it's very broad. And the kid comes into school and says, well, I have a mental reason why I don't want to wear a mask, and they can't ask why. So,
And also your God-given rights. Yeah.
Why don't we put seatbelts on a bus?
Mr. President?
Because that's a law too.
I'd like to request that we move
You
on
used
to
to.
the Upper San Juan Health Services District Strategic Plan presentation.
Everybody agree with that on the board?
Given that we've given well over 30 minutes. of public
Yes, I think
comment.
we've done.
Let's stay the same way. I'm curious what you want to say.
You're up.
Thanks again for extending that time for us. Appreciate it.
If people have questions when the meeting's over, feel free to come up and ask us one. We got a big agenda to get through.
Yeah, and feel free to email us questions as well, and we will respond to you, and that's part of the public record. So.
Thank you.
My clicker?
Yeah, your clicker, is it on Word Docs?
Is this going to be covered? We had one of the health directors. or
While
something.
Laura's doing that, I'll
Didn't he
introduce
say he
myself.
was going to, this is something about health?
The chairman of the board of directors for.
So I think we should stay
Upper
for,
San Juan
I am.
Health Services, more commonly known as Progressive Springs Medical Center. I'm not here to talk about masks, and I'm not here to talk about vaccines. I'm here to present to you the draft strategic plan for Progressive Springs Medical Center that's going forward in 2021 through 2023. I was told I have 5 minutes, so I'll try to be brief and I'll try to summarize some of the points for all of you. A couple of things that I did hand out in addition to the PowerPoint that we have forthcoming is we did pass a resolution at our board. I think it's on the agenda or related to that for housing. The board of directors believes that workforce housing is a real problem in Justice Springs. It's a problem for us as an employer, and it's a problem for us as an anchor institution for the community. I have to believe that it's a problem for you guys as well. So the resolution essentially states that we believe it's a state of crisis for our community, and we are looking and willing to be a partner with all of you and other institutions in our community regarding this particular issue. The other thing that I handed out, and I'm sure most of you got this in the mail, but we sent out our community report. And I just wanted to add a couple of things that you know,
Saved it,
is I'd like to call your attention to, if you don't mind, page 9. And the reason why I wanted to do that is because I think in some regards, Pagosa Medical Center is kind of misunderstood. So we are a special district, and that's a Colorado Title II special district, and we do receive a mill levy here in our service area. Is all of Archuleta County and portions of Hinsdale and Middlefield, basically those properties that are west of the mountains. So we do get a mill levy, we do get property taxes, and we are essentially governmental entity. So what I wanted to call your attention to, because I don't think people understand this necessarily, is that and this is for 2020, last year, our total revenue from all sources was a little over $38 million. Of that $38 million, we collect in property taxes about $1.3 million, which is 3%. So it's not our total revenue, it's a very small portion. If you go over to the next page on page 10, what I also like to point out to folks is that for every dollar that we take in tax revenue, we basically give back to the community in unreimbursed care for Medicare, Medicaid, and also for charity care. If you'll see in the charts down below, we have 3 years, 2018, 19, and 20, and that ranges from basically $3.7 million to $5.6 million. So the context that I like to give is that for every dollar that community invests in us, thank you very much,
We give back in unreimbursed costs anywhere from $3 to $5. Furthermore, because we are a public entity, our board is elected, so we have 7 members, we're all elected. I'm in my 8th and final year, I'm termed out next year. And because of that, we have the open meetings and open records law. So the way I look at it is the community gets 100% control through the board of directors, 100% transparency, and for the minimum, well, not minimum, but for the investment of $1, we give back anywhere from $3 to $5. So we think that's a good bargain for the community, and we're proud to do it. Okay, so I'm going to go forward here. I'm going to skip a few slides here just in the interest of time. So it's this one.
Push the top button.
Top button.
It should be
Okay. So you guys have seen this. I think this is in your packet, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the mission, values, and vision. But you can see there. We go here, we talk about who we are because it's been quite the journey for our organization and for campus in general. We started out in 1981 as basically just an ambulance service. We've gone through the years. The hospital was built in 2008, and then we built the clinic in 2017, and we opened the cancer center in 2018. So it's been quite a journey. Also, if you look in the thing on page 11 in the community report, we offer 16 different service lines, ranging from cancer care to neurology, the lab, ears, throat, surgery, all these other things. This is just a timeline on how we got to where we were. And this is, I guess, what I'd like to spend a little more time on is the strategic plan. So again, this is for calendar years 2001 through 2023. We talked about doing a 5-year strategic plan, but for us in healthcare, everything is changing so dramatically, so quick. There's so many factors that are going on that we figured 3 years would be likely to focus on. And if you see here, when we have essentially what we're calling 5 pillars of our strategic plan: quality and patient safety, culture and talent, strategic growth, financial stability, and community relations. And there's a whole bunch of small tactics that are in there, and I won't go through those. There's a couple that I want to focus on that I think are relevant and important for our community, and also important for where we are as an organization. Some of the struggles we face and will face going on, and what that means to the community, actually, as the primary healthcare provider. So under quality and patient safety, we have one tactic, which is maximize our participation in state and federal healthcare quality programs. What that means and why that's important is that for our community and our hospital, our payer mix, if you will, and so that means who's paying for the services. We're anywhere, obviously, as you can imagine, it changes between 60 and 65% of our payer mix of the people that are coming to us are Medicare and Medicaid. So Medicare is for, generally speaking, people that are 65 plus, and Medicaid is for, and that's a federal program. Medicaid is a state program, and that's for people that need assistance with medical costs. Medicaid reimburses us 60% of our cost for Medicaid. So that's 40% difference. Medicare reimburses us 99% of our costs. So that's a little less. Medicare is actually going to go down to 95%. So the problem is that we have a challenge in that we are basically getting less than what our costs are. Why that's important for our community is because just the plain demographics of our communities, we are an elderly community. I hate to say it that way, but I guess that's the case. And that is pointed out, and that's evidenced by Medicare usage. That's only going to get, according to the state demographer, that's only going to get worse. And in fact, when I spoke to the state demographer last, and this is a couple years ago, she said that Archuleta County is projected to become the oldest average age county in the state of Colorado. Now that's a challenge for the school district in one level, but it's also a challenge for us because that means more and more of the people that are going to be seeking our services are going to be in that demographic. So one of the things that we strive to do is, quite frankly, appropriately so, the state and feds are asking us to focus on quality and not quantity. So we are doing that, and by doing that, we're incentivized to at higher reimbursement rates. So that is something that we are going to be focusing on because that's our payer, and that's how we want to do that. Under strategic growth, one of the tactics is obtain updated market data and assess new or existing service lines. Why is that important? So we do have other service lines, 16 of them, as I said, and we need service lines that help offset the programs that most people use that don't pay us the cost to recover. So, or in the timeline, you'll see what we've implemented. We started doing orthopedic surgery. That's actually a very, it's one of the areas that we help make up some of the money that we don't get in the other ones. We also, as I mentioned, started the Cancer and Blood Treatment Center in 2018. I hate to say this, but because of the demographics of our community, that is also something that is needed and something that has actually proven to be very popular. I hate to say it that way, but that is the case. So what our challenge is to look at what is the data set that what might be viable, what we call service lines, that is appropriate and makes sense for our community. So that one, we can service demand that's there, such as cancer screening, but it also is a service line that enables us to provide the other services that we do. The other thing that this is, I think, appropriate for the school district is that we were starting this last year, and we got sidetracked with COVID, is that we are looking to investigate what we're calling a subscription program for area employers. So the school district, the county, the town, cause, city market, and whatever employers are, is that essentially we offer an insurance program or a subscription program that enables you to send your employees to us and get care that they need, and we can keep the resources in our community rather than going out to other insurance carriers. So we see that as an opportunity to work with all of you who we see as stakeholders and see if we can offer something that makes sense for everyone. So the other thing is that I almost hesitate to bring this up. It's going to have to be a conversation. So one of the things that we talked about, and I know this is meaningful to the school district, it is to county, PAWS, the fire district, all these other folks that are in the same boat as we are, is that we get that mill levy, the 3.8 mills, I believe. So it's about 1.3 million. As I saw, as I mentioned to you, that's 3% overall. At some point, we may want to come back to the community, or we actually need to come back to the community to ask for an additional increase. We believe that's important because we want local control. We want to provide as many services as we possibly can that's meaningful and useful to the community. But we can only do that if we have the participation with the community. And I know that's a tough thing, and it's a tough thing because I know the school probably at some point, well, you guys, a couple years ago, you were successful with your program, the fire district was as well. But the trend for rural community hospitals is to close or to affiliate with larger systems. And the larger systems, I can tell you, they will not be interested in providing as many 16 service lines that we have here that they could have you do now. I see Randy here in the audience, but I'm going to say this, is that and Mercy has not said that they are interested, but in other jurisdictions, smaller hospitals, they affiliate with the larger system. Mercy Centura, there's UC Health, there's other ones, and so to survive, you end up having to affiliate. They make it worth sense by offering fewer services. So instead of coming to Pagosa, we're about to put in a brand new MRI by the end of the year. run two in the entire state of Colorado. They won't have you. They'll send you to Green. They'll send you somewhere else. A lot of the other service lines. So that's our challenge. And COVID has been, crazy year for everyone for a lot of reasons. But this is an issue that's not going to go away for this community. It's something that we'll have to confront. And at the end of the day, it'll be a choice for the community. Do they want local control? Do they want local services? And if so, then there may have to be an additional investment. So with that, I guess I'll conclude by saying that we're taking comments. So if you or anyone in the audience, we will have we haven't set this up yet. Right now, we're going to different stakeholders in the community, either the town, the county, here with the POQA, and I think there's some other ones. But we're going to go and hold also public comment. We want to hear what's important to you, and then we'll probably adopt as the board the strategic plan towards the end of the year. So that's our timeline. That's our thing. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board members may have.
Thank you, sir.
Well, first of all, I'm here to present to the board, so I'd like to take questions from the board first.
I don't think you got it.
And I have a quick comment though.
Yes.
I appreciate that the clinic continues to provide very nice sports physicals to all our kids at very nominal costs. I appreciate it.
Thank you. If I could, and if you'll indulge me a minute, we're having a real problem. Housing is part of this, and getting employees. And we've recently had to cut off our Saturday hours because we literally cannot staff it. We have lost 3 nurses. Rent goes off for bonuses of $15,000. We just literally cannot staff it. We don't have people being able to do the blood draws that we would do. It's a real problem for us. Here's the irony with that is by closing our Saturday clinic, because we can't staff it, that's forcing some people to go to our emergency room, which is a higher level of care. And because we're what's called a critical access hospital, we are required to keep a 24/7, 365 emergency room. And we created the Saturday hours in the clinic so that people wouldn't have to go to the emergency room. And that's actually by diverting them, which is the right thing to do, we make less money. So the irony is that by closing the Saturday clinic, we're forcing people to go to the emergency room, a higher level of care. We're going to end up having to wait because obviously we're going to take a car crash, car wreck, or a heart attack or whatever first. But we end up having to, and everyone end up having to pay more because we have to charge for someone to go to the emergency room. So that's some of the things that we're struggling with. We don't want to do it, but that's what it is. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Mr. Schulte, I have a question. First, what's your timeline?
I'm listening to you.
So, does your board and does your staff have a plan for a timeline for rolling out this subscription program, and when we might learn more information about that?
So what's not on this PowerPoint, but it is in the detail of our plan, is that we do have specific tasks and deadlines for that. So for that specific one, we hope to have a subscription plan or proposal. Basically, I think it's the 3rd quarter of 2022. I will say that it's going to be a complicated thing to try and essentially offer our own insurance option essentially for that. So there's a lot of things that we have to figure out, and we have to do the math and see that it makes sense. And it's something that we can offer that's going to be attractive utilization use for organizations just like yourself. Mr. President, I know you've got a big agenda. There's probably some questions for me. I'll step outside the door. If people have questions for me, I'll be happy to answer whatever questions they have. It's their meeting, so I will defer to the board chair.
But if you want to answer questions that relate to your presentation, that'd be great.
comments from the board, of which I have none, enough already. You're up.
Any other board member have questions before we go to me?
No, the meetings that I typically attend were not in session in July, so I'll have a report.
Right.
Part of what I had the opportunity to say, I got to say earlier. All I want to share with the board is just kind of a setup to, tonight we're going to talk about our NWEA, which is the Northwest Education Association Measure of Academic Progress. It's a test that our students take in the fall and in the spring to measure growth academically. NWEA would try to tell you that the MAP test is a good predictor of CMAS success, but given the last year and a half, the last 2 years, that's not necessarily the case. This Thursday, the state will release spring CMAS data, which is the Colorado Measure of Academic Skills. That will get released this Thursday from the state. We plan to bring our board a full disaggregated report on our CMAS data next month. But tonight, Assistant Superintendent Mijares is going to walk you through what we have from NWEA, because we have not been able to present that yet. It was done late in the spring for our students, and she'll have the data for you tonight. That's all I've got.
Yeah, Mr. Mike is up.
Thank you, Rick. On your board packets and on the website, board docs, there are 3 reports that constitute the quarterly financial report for the time ending June 30th. The first report is a quarterly financial report. It lists revenues and expenses by fund. Compared this year to last year. If you go to the last page of that report, summarizing, we received 92% of our expected revenues, which is $19,493,000. However, our expenses were 85% of what we had anticipated. Now that does include reserves, which we never planned to spend in the first place. So we spent $19,106,000. So we had a $387,000 surplus, all funds combined.
Nice.
The next, and there, if anyone has questions, wants more detail, it's on board docs. You can read it at your leisure or ask any questions anytime you please. The next report I have is the quarterly cash flow report for the general fund. At the end of the year, we ended up with a $933,000 surplus in the general fund. We had significant revenues that exceeded our expectations. Property taxes and state support both had revenue that we did not expect. The state made some changes in the late stages of their session that provided us more money. There was even a $64,000 increase in money that they gave us the last day of the year. They've given us some COVID money. They took away regular money. They gave us the regular money back. I don't know why, how, or what. I just know we got the money. That $933,000 surplus compares to a $12,000 deficit that we were projecting back at the end of March. So a lot of the reason we had a surplus is our spending was lower. We didn't do as much athletically, didn't travel as much, didn't have some additional programs that we would normally have, so we spent less money. And that money we can save and spend this coming year. There is also a quarterly investment report. This is a depressing report. It used to be my favorite because we used to get lots of interest rates real high when they were 3 or 4%, and now they're anywhere from 1/10% to 65 to 100%. On the very last page, I added a graph that shows the revenue, total investment revenue by
This year, 36,000. And the reason is markets are all lousy. The Federal Reserve is continuing to depress interest rates, so we just don't have any opportunities to earn. We're looking for safe investments. We're not going to play the stock market. We're not going to lose any money because that's what our investment policy requires, and that's the right thing to do. But it's not earning us the kind of money we used to. Last thing I want to share is not on a board doc, but it was a meeting I was involved with last week. There is a law that the legislature passed this past session called a mill levy correction. Back in the late 1990s till about 2007, there was what is being described as a mistaken advice by the Colorado Department of Education that allowed school districts to decrease their mill levies despite the fact that they were retaining the money and the state was making up those differences. The state decided and the Supreme Court has weighed in that that was a mistake, and we get to correct that over the next several years. What that means, some schools there's a maximum mill levy set statewide of 27 mills. Some schools such as Alamosa are already there. Other schools are not. We will see an increase of 5.84 mills over the next 6 years. That pays up approximately $1 million a year. So we're going to see a tax increase in this community, even though it's nothing that we want to do.
So what's the mechanism that automatically ratchets those mills up? The state law that we need to get to 27?
It's state law now that we need to get to 27.
And therefore, you're just stair-stepping in.
The law states you will correct the mistake as quickly as possible, but no more than a mill a year. So sometimes we're going to have a fraction of the mill. They don't know if that's the front end or the back end. I asked the question, they don't have the answer. There will be press releases coming out from CDE to explain this to people. I'm still trying to find in Archuleta County when this all started. And it had to do with a neighboring election that was held probably in the late 1990s. I'm trying to find the exact year so I can then go to the county clerk's office or look through our records and find out exactly what the language was. Because there are some small exceptions that we might be able to. We now have the maximum, have to raise at least 27 mills unless our rate was lower before that election was held. So I'm trying to find out when that election was held so I can find what our rate was.
So essentially, the mills will increase to make up for funding that we received from the state in the past that now has been deemed that we should not have received. Is that correct?
Yeah. And one of the issues that I think White passed the legislature, this is pure conjecture on my part, as we pay more, the state pays less. There are some programs that they're going to fund with this money, such as English language learners. It's going to receive some of it. Some of it will buy down the mill or the budget stabilization factor. So we will receive more state money. But the legislature has their pleasure to make that decision year by year by year. So we don't have long-term confidence in what they're going to decide. I just wanted to make you aware that in December, when you have some mill levies, if it goes up, that's why it goes up. Questions?
I will just observe that those interest rates cycle, and probably cycling back up.
They haven't started yet.
In the next 2 or 3 years?
Yeah.
look forward to the
Double-edged
investment
sword.
reporting then.
We don't want Mike hoping that we go to high interest rates.
It's all good or bad. If it's a mortgage, you want to keep them down.
Yeah.
You're in our books, you want to earn a little more. It's not in our control.
On the next to last page, just for comparison, I always run the 90-day T-bill rates.
Yeah.
A year ago it was 0.16. This June it was 0.05. It used to be in twos.
What's that? What's he saying?
Thank you, Mike. Any questions or anything?